Welcome to this presentation of the Indoor Football League on the IFL Network.
Two teams playing their best football. The best teams standing are here today. Game-winning drive. When I score, I go for two. I don't believe in overtime. Put your hands up in the sky
in Henderson. It's the Vegas Nighthawks hosting the Northern Arizona Wranglers, and tonight it's pretty simple. Win, and the Nighthawks are in the playoffs for a second consecutive season. Great to be back with you tonight on a Saturday night in Henderson alongside Justin Russo. I'm Ben Wilson. Justin, you'll be a busy man tonight. A lot of scoreboard watching going on, but at least from the Vegas perspective, they have a 2-game lead over Tucson for the final playoff spot in the Western Conference, and there's only 2 weeks to go, so that means they've got them dormy. Win tonight, and you're in, and they'll try to do that against the 2-12 Wranglers of Northern Arizona, who Nighthawks have already come away victorious twice this year.
Hey, you love the simplicity if you're Vegas, right? You know exactly what you have to do on the field tonight to clinch your playoff spot, and really that's the only thing on their mind. You alluded to some of the scoreboard watching we'll do. Of course, San Diego, Arizona, they're both in action currently. Tucson as well, kicking off in just a moment too, so lots to look on the outside for Vegas to see where they might end up in those playoffs. But step one, you got to get in. And right now, as you said, simple enough for Vegas. Take care of business against a Wranglers team that you've already done so for this year, and you're in the postseason for the second straight year. Tucson,
as you mentioned, about to get underway. They are hosting the team Vegas just lost to last Friday night, Bay Area, who is the #1 seed as it stands in the Western Conference. So the updates right off the bat, San Diego and Arizona, they're both in action. For Vegas to have a shot of moving up in the seeding, they need both Arizona, who's at San Antonio, and San Diego, who's at Fishers, Indiana, to lose tonight. And so far, Justin, both of those things are actually, as it stands, in progress of potentially happening. San Diego down big at Fishers in the second half, and Arizona was down to San Antonio, but looks like they just retook the lead. So both of those teams have to lose for Vegas to have any chance of moving out of the 4 seed if they are to clinch a spot.
Yeah, exactly, and you want to do that because you want to avoid that Bay Area team that we know is so good. It was a tight game last week between Vegas and Bay Area. You know you have the chops if you're the Vegas Nighthawks to go up there and get that win, but I think you'd like your chances against Arizona or San Diego. And as you mentioned, Arizona just took the lead beginning stages of the fourth quarter right now in San Antonio, and San Diego right now down by a couple of scores to Fishers. So lots to potentially play out here. Those two teams, San Diego, Arizona, they still got to face each other one more time this season next week, and that'll factor into it certainly. But right now, we're juggling everything as we get the Week 18, Week 17 kind of action here, as you liken it to the NFL here back in the IFL.
Yeah, there is certainly a scenario where, let's say, Arizona wins, San Diego loses, then Vegas would be rooting for an Arizona victory over San Diego next week. If that were to happen, you'd have San Diego dropping to the 4 seed line. Vegas would move up to the 3 and would take on Arizona as the #2 seed. If the inverse happens, if Arizona loses. If San Diego comes back and wins, then you'd root for San Diego. So if we can help you follow along, that's our goal for tonight. But as far as the specific matchup here, Justin, Vegas are big favorites, over 2 touchdown favorites, in fact, against 2-12 Northern Arizona. The interesting wrinkle since the last time Vegas and Northern Arizona met in Week 10 has been the inclusion of both quarterbacks, Jayden DeLaura and Jerome Johnson. They started the year in a teeter-totter quarterback battle, but over the last 2 weeks, both guys have been used pretty consistently. It's been about 60% DeLaura, 40% Johnson on the snaps. What have you made of this latest stretch that has seen both guys have a very big role for the Vegas offense?
No, it's interesting. I think it's something that I personally thought we'd see earlier in the season, given the difference in the skill sets, right? DeLaura was so good throwing the ball down the field, taking care of the football, right? But you figured you have to utilize some of that ground game in Jerome Johnson. Didn't see it earlier on as they were trying to find one guy and stick with him. But I think as both of them have found their footing this season, I think they're both confident to be in there and to kind of share that role a little bit. And Jayden DeLaura has continued to be excellent. You look at the touchdowns to turnovers, 23 touchdowns, just 2 interceptions. And you can't forget about Jerome Johnson, 3 touchdowns on the ground last week. You don't want to miss that if you're head coach Mike Davis. You want that ability on the field. So balancing both of them has been pretty good so far, right? They did lose last week. It was a tough loss. But I think managing both of those guys as we trend toward a hopeful playoff push for the Nighthawks is probably the best thing to do right now.
And both quarterbacks have featured in the season series against Northern Arizona. Go back to Week 5. We were here, Justin, when Jayden DeLaura got hurt in his first start for Vegas at home. Got hurt late first half. Vegas was down. They were really struggling on offense. Johnson came in after previously being benched, rallied them to a come-from-behind win, and then in the second meeting, it was all DeLaura. He was dominant as Vegas rolled to a 63-43 win on the road. That was a season high in points for the Nighthawks. When we return, it's time for our starting lineups and opening kickoff. It's the Nighthawks and the Wranglers, and it's coming up right after this here on 12:30 The Game. Back inside Lee's Family Forum, where we're getting set for Vegas and Northern Arizona. Nighthawks come into tonight 8-6 with a 7-5 conference record. Vegas with a win over Northern Arizona, who's 2-12. do clinch a second consecutive trip to the IFL postseason. Moving up to the 3 seed line, still not out of the question, but Vegas not going to be hosting a first-round playoff game like they did last year. Nighthawks a game back of both Arizona and San Diego, who each sit 9-5. Justin will be updating us throughout the night as both Arizona and San Diego are on the road in the Eastern time zone. They are in the fourth quarter of their respective games right now. Let's run through these starting lineups for tonight as the captains come out to midfield. For Vegas, it's Quentin Randolph, Antonio Wimbush, and Claude Davis, joined by Darius Williams, who are the captains. Former Nighthawk Kalen Hicks, one of the 4 Northern Arizona captains, along with Bakembe Kearney, Chris Simon from the offensive line, and Mason Newton on the D-line. For the Nighthawks, Jaden DeLaura, who is 6-2 as a starter. He will get the start again. 23 touchdowns to 2 picks for the Honolulu native out of Arizona. Antonio Wimbush up to 30 total touchdowns on the season now, after putting together another impressive game, 2 scores last week at Bay Area. The 5'9" running back out of Division II, Carson Newman, starts there. 3 wide receivers remain unchanged. Former Wrangler and IFL champion with Northern Arizona, Quentin Randolph, out of Division II West Florida, starts alongside the Middle Tennessee product, C.J. Wyndham, and former Kent State Golden Flash, Mike Kerrigan, while Desmond Bland out of West Florida, Kevin Toot from Division II Pace University in New York, and D2 Pitt State product, Moses Mallory, are the 3 offensive linemen. And on the defensive side of the ball, Claude Davis out of South Florida starts alongside Richmond product Maurice Jackson and Western Kentucky Hilltopper Lorenzo Hernandez. Cam Bright out of Washington is the starting linebacker, with the quartet in the defensive backfield: Bryce Hampton out of Purdue, James Caesar out of Ferris State in Michigan, Darius Williams from Carson Newman in Tennessee, and Elijah Blades out of Buffalo. We'll also see Justin Chizzy Umanakwe. He's active tonight. The former Wrangler was just traded midseason back in Week 11, set to make his Nighthawk home debut against his former team.
Yeah, that's the big thing, right? Against the former team. Didn't play last week, but you know he's excited to get into the lineup. Made an impact with that Northern Arizona team in the time that he had with them. 11 games with them, 74 tackles, 12 tackles for loss. So he's certainly a factor on the defensive side of the ball. And no better way to get back at the team that just let you go, just traded you, than to beat them and clinch an IFL playoff berth.
And Vegas is set to get the football first. We'll run through the Northern Arizona starters once we have them all set and we get things rolling. 2-12 for the Wranglers, but they just snapped a 6-game losing streak, beat Tucson 61-55. They did Vegas a lot of help, didn't they, last week?
Oh, yeah, and that's the thing you have to worry about late in the season, right? Those teams playing spoiler. They're looking to do it again this week to see if they can make a dig at Vegas' hopes to potentially move up higher, but nothing is given. Nothing is certain at this time of the year, and as much as the teams like San Diego and Tucson and Vegas are all vying for position, these guys are playing for something too. They're looking for jobs on this team next year or across the league or other leagues, right? So they're still putting it all on the field, and they're looking to do everything they can down the stretch.
Nighthawks win the toss. They defer to the second half. So the lefty Ben Derby, who's been outstanding over the last 5 or so weeks, kicker out of NAIA Kaiser University in Florida, has it on the near side of the goal line, kicking from right to left, and we're underway as the lefty goes for an opening kickoff. Deuce, it has plenty of leg, but just sails wide right. Derby had an opening kickoff deuce against Tucson a couple weeks ago, but he cannot connect this time, and so Northern Arizona will start on their own 20. And Ramon Atkins has been on a heater. The Gary, Indiana native out of Division II New Mexico Highlands, 14 touchdowns, no picks over his last 3 games. He starts at quarterback, while Nolan Susel out of Black Hills State in South Dakota is the running back. Deshaun Stoudemire out of Troy, David Elder from Ottawa University in NAIA in Arizona, and Arlen Bruce IV out of Oklahoma State are the 3 wide receivers. DJ Stuckey, who started the season with Vegas and is a UNLV product, he starts on the offensive line along with the center junior Atua Tassi out of Adams State and Chris Simon from South Carolina State. Atkins is ready for the near hash. High shotgun snap given inside to Bruce, who gets planted right up the gut by Cam Bright. Just a gain of a yard for Bruce. And Bright's done a lot of that, Justin, since he was signed in Week 10. Actually made his Nighthawk debut against Northern Arizona and has averaged 11 tackles a game.
It's incredible the amount of volume he's able to get for this defense in terms of stopping the ball carrier. 10 tackles you mentioned in that team debut, 16 tackles against Bay Area earlier or last week, and he's just been so incredible at just swallowing up everything that the offense can throw at him, and he's been such an excellent midseason addition for this team.
2nd and 9 from the 21. Shotgun snap to Atkins. Quick throw, left seam, caught by Bruce at the Nighthawk 20. That's a first down. Forward progress all the way to the 14-yard line before Bright makes the stop, as Northern Arizona gets a big pass play of 15 yards. And this is a Wrangler offense coming off a season high 61 points last week. First time they'd cleared 60 since week 12 of 2024.
And remember, they still put up 43 points against the Nighthawks the last time these two teams met as well. So the offense necessarily hasn't been the issue. The points per game overall isn't the best, but you mentioned the current form that they're in right now with Atkins at the helm. They can score points.
Trips wide to the right, 2 and forward motion from that side. Shotgun snap, Atkins steps up into a clean pocket, dumps it underneath to Deshaun Stoudemire, team's leading receiver, who's hit immediately by Williams and goes down at that spot at the 10-yard line. 4-yard pickup to Stoudemire, who's been the team's leading receiver each of the 2 games against Vegas with a combined 13 grabs. And that just tells you, Justin, Wranglers do have a lot of weapons on offense.
Yeah, exactly. That's the number one guy right there. Those 13 grabs for 123 yards against the Nighthawks. Hasn't found the end zone yet against Vegas, so we'll see if he can do himself a favor there and get in.